Pleasure to interview our 24th guest for 2024, Lena Cebula, who is also a believer of our Lord Jesus Christ. Lena Cebula was born and raised in USSR Ukrainian, the iron mining town. She has struggled with poverty, trying to survive. She was a drug addict and a human trafficking survivor. So today, Lena is going to be very vulnerable in sharing her story. She is a wife, a mother of three beautiful children. She has an agency called Love&BeLoved. That's her brand. And she's going to share a little bit about that as well. So today we are very happy to introduce Lena, who's going to be speaking about her story. And today's title for this podcast is We Cannot Just Keep Silent About Human Trafficking Anymore. So I'm very pleased to greet our guest, Lena Cebula.
Hi, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Clarabelle. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be encourager on your podcast. And congratulations on starting this venture and guest 24. Very impressive. And pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I want to start by asking you, how did you become a Christian, and why did you needed you felt that need that you needed to change your life, and why?
Absolutely. A bit about my spiritual journey to faith. I was born, as you say, in USSR, and we had religion. Nobody had relationship with God, but I never really experienced any closeness or anything like that. So moving to Canada, it was significant for me because I met my husband here and through his family because his father was a pastor. So I started going to church with them just to impress his family. And there I was introduced to Alpha course. And during that time, I gave my life to Christ and I experienced peace and forgiveness and belonging that I never had before. And that's what marked my walk with God. And looking back, I realized that He was always in my life, but I didn't know Him before. So, yeah.
It's a beautiful story. It's beautiful testimony. Thank you for sharing that. So I am going to share some statistic so individuals can understand that whole concept of human trafficking and what it entails. So this is according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and these are common types of human trafficking. Number one, forced labor victims who are forced to work against their will. Number two, sex individuals that are required to engage in sexual acts. And number three, forced marriage victims, which are forced to marry people that they haven't given consent to. And number four, domestic servitude, forced labor happens in private household. And this one was new to me, and it's surprising that this is happening. Child soldiers, minors, which are used in fight to become fighters in acts of war, and sex trafficking is the most common type of trafficking, and there are 54% of those trapped in modern day slavery, which are the women and girls. So there are 88 million child abuse files reported nationally through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And this data is from 2022, so it's fairly new. So child trafficking has been reported in all 50 states. Human trafficking is a business. It's a 150 billion industry, and it's the second most profitable illegal industry in the U.S. So this data can be found in ourrescue.org. So the title of the podcast is Why We Cannot Just Keep Silent About Human Trafficking Anymore. And can you share about your story of being trafficked, and how did it lead to drug addiction?
Absolutely. First of all, it's commonly thought that the buying and selling people, it was something of the past. But in fact, that more people traffic today than any time in human history. and even when slavery was legal. So, guys, think about that. Only because of social media, we know this more right now, and we have those statistics, and we're talking about this topic more openly. But I was trafficked more than 20 years ago, so it's been existing like forever.
Wow.
So it's great
Mhm.
that we taking steps. And number one, I do believe by sharing our stories, so we cannot be silent about this anymore. So a little bit about me. When I was born, because I was born in USSR in 2000, um, when I was 11 years old, my country fell apart, and Ukraine, where I was resided, claimed the independence. So while my parents already didn't have good relationship in their marriage, this discord in the family brought, like, literally poured the oil into the fire, and my parents became an alcoholics, lost well-paid jobs, and my home was infested with cockroaches, mice, and black mold, and we really struggle in poverty trying to survive. My home was full of strangers, and they brought booze and drugs into my home, but there was opportunity for me to eat, so I was hanging around there all the time, and that's how I end up an easy target for those guys. So I've been raped, abused, beaten in my home numerous times. So when I couldn't get in, like when I thought the things couldn't get any worse, I end up in severe abdominal pain, and I end up in hospital delivering the baby. I didn't know who her father was, and I didn't know I even was pregnant. So my baby died 3 months later from health complications, and I buried her when I was 15. So I started looking into drug abuse and alcohol just to medicate my pain. And that's what led, excuse me, actually to human trafficking, because I met the woman who said that she can help. And instead of that, she actually sold me into foreign country, into human trafficking. So I end up being 2 years almost in Israel, and and they're actually in the brothel of Israel. One of my bodyguards shared the gospel with me, the good news of God's love, and that's what make me to want to go home, because there was an amazing story that you can read in my book. And you guys, if you listening, how all the details and how the story unravel, you can purchase the book or connect with me online as well. So I actually asked to go home, and in most cases you would never leave this kind of situation alive unless you have been rescued. But by the grace of God, they allowed me to go home, which is um, unseen, unheard. So when I came home, I thought I'm gonna start a new life because I have some money saved up. But another my bodyguard, who was like a brother to me, cheated me out of all my possession, and my aunt spent and like stole and spent all my money. So I was so devastated. I became again a drug addict, and soon after, I was right hand of the number one drug dealer in my city. So I thought I'm gonna get worth and value from being like influence, and the money and all the amount of drugs didn't help. So this time, second time, I quit drugs by myself, and second time I actually sold myself into human trafficking willingly, because I thought, oh, I'm gonna be dead of overdose, or I'm gonna be murdered, or I'm gonna end up in jail. So that sounds like a solution to me. I just want to leave the country. So this time they brought me to Canada. And in Canada, I realized that I can start a new life. So I escaped my traffickers. I lived in shelter. I quit drugs. I learned English. I got into government credit cosmetology course, and I was hairstylist for 16 years. And then I owned my hair salon. But then I closed my business right before COVID, and then I published my book, and I start speaking about God's love and reality of human trafficking publicly. And today I'm as well a Christian leadership coach for women, and I help them to think creatively and come through the trauma or um, not come through the trauma. We will talk about this a little bit later on. But what I help them to be just a person who gonna be in their corner in the time of transitions, because
Mhm.
I found that really helped me to thrive when people partner up with me on my healing journey. So now I'm giving back and I want to be that for someone else.
What a remarkable story. Sorry to hear that you had to go through all that, but at the end, God was like chasing you because you found God in everywhere you went to. So that is an amazing story. Now,
Yeah.
from the statistic, right, that we just shared, women and girls are high risk. Can you explain why are they such a high risk of human trafficking?
Absolutely. First of all, human trafficking can happen to anyone. And what I usually say that human trafficking beast does not discriminate. It actually can devour any race, any age, any gender. But of course, some of the people more vulnerable than others. And women and girls have high risk because of the several reasons. First of all, gender inequality. And definitely, um, women have less sometimes economic opportunities, less education, and honestly, I do believe because of the some of the mental health challenges as well, and being like subordinate position compared to men, definitely like it's all the old school that we're fighting. Actually, I'm part of the organization called Zonta, and we're fighting for creating better world for women and girls, and we're covering all of those topics that you mentioned earlier as the human trafficking, sex trafficking, but the child marriages as well. So the women still being forced around the world into some of the situation like that. Of course, the violence and exploitation, women and girls are affected by gender-based, like I said, violence, including domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. And those forms of violence can like profound physical, emotional, and psychological impact. Because, and we will talk about this later, guys, about red flags. And I do believe when our mental health is affected and we're not as strong as our faith in communities, it's very easy prey because that's exactly what happened to me at home. There was nobody to protect me, but I was already a victim of my surroundings before I become a victim of the rape and abuse.
So from the data, it's a very prevalent issue nowadays, especially now in the US. And we are now being, like you said, informed about the human trafficking. What do you think is causing this growth of incidents in the United States at this moment right now?
I think it can be attributed to several factors. First, I do believe COVID hit us hard because being isolated and social media actually that's brought another huge level, and it's all talking like about the mental health and isolation. That's number one where it can start because that's how the predator actually lure the victim. They pretend to be they play on all the basic needs, to be loved, to belong, to be heard. And social media like really impacting our mental health and physical health as well. So of course some economic disparities too, and there's I have a note about the mental health. Literally everything right now I want to concentrate. It's a mental health because um, you can say, oh, maybe it's because you have a problem in the families, and definitely dysfunctional families. It's a huge
Mm-hmm.
red flag for the person to be a victim of human trafficking inside the home or outside the home. But there is another thing that I want you to guys hear this, because sometimes that's what we give those label, and we assume that this is happening only in the bad
Mm-hmm.
family. And I kid you not, be careful of that misconception, because the good kids from the good family can get in the same trap. They can fall in love with someone, somebody can give them attention, they can give them something that they cannot get at home. For example, if both good parents working hard to provide, and all trauma, even small negative experience, counts as a trauma. Doesn't matter. You don't have to be like raped, abused to actually have the mental health challenge. Not only, I'm not only talking about the clinical depressions and anxieties, one thing like that, but in trauma in general. So they can prey on that. They can give them what they don't get at home. And sometimes for our kids, like even like just to be isolated and be bored or something like that, give that space to actually to be lured into any unhealthy relationship and then been trapped in the trafficking. And it doesn't have to be like, for me, they took me out of the country. That's extreme. You know, people can be trafficked and at home.
Oh, wow.
Like those people can be trafficked at home, and can be trafficked even like by people that they know, and they have so much because of the social media. They can ask for the pictures or some kind of information that they can use as blackmail. They can say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, if you not do this and this, I will send that to your school, to your family. So they hold the victims capture by um, all the psychological means like guilt and fear and embarrassment. Like I just heard today, this guy say like public humiliation, it's number one
Mm-hmm.
fear of the person. So they use that as hold the victims under the um like under that. Right, I'm thinking like in trap, like that's how
Mm-hmm.
they trap them.
They
Because
control
like,
them. Mm-hmm.
yeah, some, of course, extreme cases like
Mm-hmm.
they use the physical means, like they you know they trap them closed in the room and lock them up and stuff like that. But most of the time, it's actually psychological. That's why I want to stretch that mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and mental awareness and red flags awareness, because we have lots of misconception what human trafficking is. We think it's kidnapping, we think it's physical abuse, we think that we can see human trafficking, and that's the huge misconception, because if you don't know red flags, you can sit with the same person in the same table and you don't know
Mm-hmm.
that they've been trafficked.
Wow, that's really interesting. I'm glad that you share all that. And it's very important for the listeners to understand that this concept is happening right now in the U.S. and it is happening in house, like you share. So,
It's all over the world.
mhm,
It's happening in my city, in the corner of the street that I'm going with my children to get sushi. And I never pay attention because there's like, it's not a, I don't know, like building that stand out.
mhm,
There's no people that stand out. If they would, I don't know, I always kind of like joke about it, but just
mhm,
to understand for you guys, when you would see like evil, in the way that we think about evil, maybe devil or demons, whatever, with the horns, like, or with like some kind of like pictures of the
mhm,
demons, then you would see demon dragging the child. You would be shocked, and you know that this is emergency situation, and you would
mhm,
know what to do to protect that child. You would take action. You would start thinking something, but it doesn't look like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, their job to be like this shiny lure, when you're
Mm-hmm.
fishing, like it have to be beautiful. They are kind, they're compassionate, they're sweet, they're looking good, they're attractive, they do everything. This is their job to lure the victim. So they
Yes.
not look like demons.
And they have like a psychological preparedness, like they know how to use the psychology on people. It's almost like the type of psychology that they use like kind of in the military. So they make them feel very low, and then they up them like, I'm going to get you this, I'm going to get you that if you do as I say. So it's a concept that, like you said, if they are suffering from any mental illness, it's going to affect that person like right away, and they're going to be submissive to that other individual. So now that we talk about that, how can a person that has gone through that type of experience can learn how to heal from that trauma? And what are some of the strategies that can help them heal in their healing journey as well?
Absolutely. And you, Claribel, said mental illness. And I just want to clarify for you guys when we're talking about mental health and illness, I don't mean any clinical, like
Mhm,
although those ones as well, like disabilities, like they're huge.
mhm,
But just to make sure that mental health issues can be just like loneliness and depression, even mild things will still open the door for somebody to feel that in with the purpose,
mhm,
and take you and get you in trouble. So a person who has experienced human trafficking can begin through like fate. Number one was for me to learn about my identity, absolutely. And I had counseling, I have therapy, I have support groups, and it's all proven method. And sometimes you guys like one advice I would like to give you, and please hear me. There's so many therapists, so many counseling groups, there's so many churches. If you don't have a good experience, just move on. And no,
mhm,
that's not you, that's not on you. It's just not a good fit. Just give yourself permission to keep searching until you find that place. There's tons of amazing people who gonna help you and support you in the right way, but you just have to find. Don't stop at one. I know sometimes it's hard when you found one doctor and you think, wow, nothing worked for me, so you give up, because those feelings not change, your past not gonna change, nothing gonna go away if you not work at it. You have to
mhm,
put that effort. And honestly, guys, if you cannot do this effort alone, go to your family and friends, go ask for help, go ask them, to support through it. And I
mhm,
know it's hard, I know it's embarrassing, and I know there's tons of shame, guilt, and condemnation because nobody knows. But trust me, if you cannot speak to one person and tell them the truth, write the letter. And from that, start the conversation with one person. You don't have to go on podcast. It's like I
mhm,
have 20 years of journey of healing. So that's why I'm here. You don't have to be writing the books or anything. Like just start where you are and ask for help, definitely. And if you are a victim or survivor, it's definitely access to housing, education, and and some training definitely
mhm,
will play a crucial role in recovery. And that's why in 2017 I partner up with Fight for Freedom, and it's Christian nonprofit anti-human trafficking organization, and they provide all of these services to survivors and counseling and therapy and Bible study as well. They have now, and actually that Bible study been led by survivor as well. So we understand, and they create education programs because even when I was talking to my daughter about human trafficking, the
mhm.
fight for freedom already been in their school, and they already have classes because it's easier to do prevention
Yes.
than
Mhm,
deal already with survivor with tons of trauma, with tons of broken, broken soul, so definitely. But one thing for sure, I want you to know that there's hope. And I hope and pray that you can look at me, you can pray to God. If she can
Mhm.
do it, I can do it. Or if you don't have a faith for now, just say, you know what? If this woman got healing, that's mean it's possible for me. As long as you know that there's hope and there's people who gonna support and partner up for you, just please don't wait. If you need help, reach out.
Thank you for sharing all that. It's so important what you mentioned about finding the right fit of the therapist, because not every therapist is informed and trauma informed. And also, this type of trauma, it's a little bit different than all the other traumas. So they have to be informed in the human trafficking trauma to be able to reach that person and teach them the skills that they need. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And also the resources. There's a lot of resources available in the community that now teach the preventive part of human trafficking. It's like you said, it's better to prevent it than have that, the person suffering afterwards with more issues that it's harder to, their healing journey is going to take them a little bit longer. So I'm glad that you mentioned all that. So the primary causes of human trafficking are the following. Predators often target vulnerable populations according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And and the victims are likely to suffer from what you said: psychological, emotional vulnerability, economic hardship, lack of social safety net, natural disasters, or political instability. And you mentioned a little bit about this before, but if you can elaborate just a little bit more. We have 10 minutes, and I have some other questions that I want to ask you. I'm sorry I went like this. There's some little bugs going on. Um, so do you agree with the statement, or, do you recommend for a person who have become a risk? What do you recommend for a person who has become a risk because they match the vulnerability population or that target description? And what type of intervention do you feel that they will need that will help them not become a victim, like you mentioned before?
Definitely, I think mm, the prevention and how not to become victim and
Mhm,
what really works in my life. That's why I know and experience that, because the try different thing. Number one, it was my support group and my accountability. When you know that you are not alone, it's so much harder to feed you lies. Number
mhm,
one. Then another one, my faith in God was strong, because when I come out from trafficking, I believed that I was worthless, abandoned, and broken. That's another lie that we have that definitely open a huge gap to fill with tons of lies. And when I give my life to Christ, I know that I'm significant, that my life is valuable, and that my past, it's not my prison. It just
mhm,
something happened, and now I live in freedom. Definitely, another thing that we always miss, it's the our our words, what we are saying to ourselves, because Bible say our tongue can speak or life or death.
mhm,
And sometimes, like when you're very, very negative, that's definitely not a good place to be, and you become vulnerable. Another thing, that if you have this really strong feeling and you have no one to share with, or maybe right now you're not ready, write the journal. Writing, they already proven so many
mhm,
different experiments and scientific proof that when you write, and your brain process this differently. So you need to process whatever is going on. And then I would recommend, when you are ready, you actually need to share that with someone else so they can help you as well. And definitely serving. If you feel that you are isolated and alone, that definitely, if you go serve somewhere, that light disappear, that feeling disappear, because you're gonna feel so grateful to be part of something bigger than yourself. Then you can create maybe new friends, new relationships, and it feels good to give back. So definitely, like build yourself like and your identity. Then it's gonna like create almost this barrier against all this attack, and it would be really hard to lure you into
Mhm.
any mischief or really bad situations.
Thank you for sharing that. So I'm gonna question that I have number 4. So we understand that technology, and you talk a little bit about that, plays a very important role in the human trafficking. In the social media platforms are often used by the predators to recruit their victims because of the easy access. So according to the Homeland Security, the most vulnerable population are the young children. 1 out of 3 children are first exposed to social media by age 5 or younger. And sometimes these predators study the children to learn about them to gain their trust. So it's alarming that 1 out of 3 children are exposed to unwelcome sexual advances online before they turn 18. And the risk peak is by age 11 and 12 when the kids receive their first smartphones. And even more disgusting, as I was reading this, I was like taken aback by it. The fact that 43% of these children are exposed to inappropriate sexual content, but before the age of 13 years old. So hearing this information, what is your take on this statistic? And what do you recommend for parents to learn how to keep their children safe from these type of predators? And because we have 6 minutes, I want to ask you the last question. As a role model and Christian mentor, can you share a word of encouragement to the listeners who have been exposed to human trafficking and or who know somebody that has been exposed? How they can help them? And what can we do to prevent any future victims? So I know it was a lot, but
Oh, so many questions, so little time. So
we can come back. We can come back. Mm-hmm.
I can nail this in last time that we have. So
Mm-hmm.
number one, you were asking about children, and it's scary what is
Mm-hmm.
going on. But as a mom of 3 children, what I know that works, you have to monitor everything that your kid's doing. And I know sometimes it feels overwhelming or it's too much, but my husband and I, we put the blocks on lots of websites for our
Mm-hmm.
kids, and our kids not super young anymore, but since they got the electronic devices, we know where they go. And actually we have programs that tell us, oh, your child asking permission to go to this website, and then we talk to them like why you need this and all that stuff. So we actually have weekly report how long they spend on electronics, although we put the lock on that too. When the time is up, they cannot have any more time, or if it's Saturday or Sunday, they can ask us for more time. So we in control of that. So that's why I'm telling you guys, I know it sounds like a burden, sometimes extra thing to do rather than put TV on or something like that. Just please like monitor what they're doing. And another thing, you can actually see by your child behavior what they consuming online, because if they feeling like depressed, anxious, paranoid, or cannot sleep or say bad words, you know that something that they consume, that it's poisoning their mind, body, and soul. So that should be a red flag trigger. Then you go and check and like readjust everything like what you have to do. Plus, like actually on my website, I have safety on live online PDF. Just get more information how you can
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It's a great resort. Actually, on my website, lots of tons of stuff that that I have you can use. The second one, encouragement to all who have experienced human trafficking or to their families. Your guys' strength is resilient and truly remarkable. Remember, God loves you, and your past does not define you. And with support, self care, and healing is possible. Trust me, and you're not alone. Your brighter future awaits you, and stay hopeful and keep moving forward because you're valuable, you're precious, and just don't give up. there's another thing. What can you do to help? Because we cannot stay silent.
Mhm.
And you can do fundraising, volunteer, advocate. You can hold events to raise awareness about human trafficking. You can boycott or product and companies who permit human trafficking and help survivors. And number one, stay informed. And definitely, if you see any red flags, please contact to your local authorities, call 911. And I like to finish with actually with one of my favorite verses, and hopefully it help you
Yes.
too to just change perspective. And it says, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us to develop endurance, and endurance develops strength of character, and character strength of our confident hope of salvation. And this hope will not lead to disappointment, for we know how dearly God loves us because He has given us the Holy Spirit to fill our hearts with His love. And it's Romans 5:3-5. And that's what I want to leave with you guys. Everything you're going through have reason and purpose.
Lena, thank you so much
Okay.
for joining me today and sharing your story, the excellent resources, and all the words of encouragement and educating us on how serious this issue with human trafficking is. So, with human trafficking, a statistic of cases, just to give again the listeners more of how you say more information about this issue, how dangerous it is right now. So per 100,000 people in the US, these are the highest number per cities. Mississippi, 7.92, District of Columbia, 6.4, Nevada, 6.26, Missouri, 3.86, Oregon, 3.78, and California, 3.43, and Florida, 3.4. So human trafficking, like you said, can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter the race, the color, the religion, socioeconomic status, like you share. So according to the Bureau of Justice, sex trafficking victims are more likely to be white, 26%, and 40% tend to be of African American. And compared to the labor trafficking victims who are more likely to be either Hispanic, 63%, and Asian, 17%. So these statistics are really high. We need individuals to wake up and know that this is a serious issue and that we just can't keep quiet anymore. We're going to be sharing Lena's website so you can find more information, also information about her book. And so we're very thankful to have her today, and we hope that the listeners can value this information and share it with others as well. God bless.
Thank you for having me.
So I
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you so much for sharing your resources and your expertise with us
Thank
today.
you so much.
God
Have a
bless
good
you.
day. God
You too.
bless.
You too. God bless you.